Have you ever watched someone on camera and thought, something feels off, but I can't explain why? You know that feeling. When a person is saying all the right words, standing in their driveway, talking calmly, and yet the air around them feels heavy, too still, like a room where the window's been shut for too long. That's what makes the case of Chris Watts so unsettling. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't a dramatic scene. It was suburban, quiet. A Colorado neighborhood with trimmed lawns and work trucks parked neatly in driveways. A husband giving interviews. A father asking for his family to come home. And millions of people watching, trying to figure out why their instincts were whispering that something wasn't right. Here is what I mean. Think about it this way. We're used to danger looking like danger. Raised voices, broken doors, obvious warning signs. But what happens when everything looks normal? When the smile is there, the tone is steady, the house looks just like yours. That's the part that stops people mid-scroll. Because this case isn't just about what happened, it's about the moment the mask slips. The consequences that ripple outward. The realization that sometimes the person standing closest to you is the one you never really saw at all. Before we continue, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Okay, let's proceed. Before we get anywhere near the crime, it helps to picture them as a unit, not separate headlines, a family. Shanann and Chris weren't strangers who drifted into a tragedy. They built a life together. A house in Frederick, Colorado, 2 little girls running through the living room, a 3rd baby on the way, school drop-offs, oil field shifts, Facebook Live videos from the kitchen while dinner simmered in the background. Here's what I mean. Their life wasn't dramatic, it was routine. Chris leaving early for work in steel-toed boots. Shanann managing doctor appointments, preschool schedules, and her health while also promoting her business online. Bella wanting her dad to tuck her in. Cece climbing onto the couch without asking. Normal, everyday attachment. But underneath the routines, things were shifting. That summer of 2018, Shanann had taken the girls to North Carolina for several weeks to visit family. From the outside, it looked like a regular extended visit. But in messages to friends, she admitted something felt off. Chris seemed distant, short in his replies, less affectionate. She was trying to figure out what was wrong, trying to fix it. Think about that. She wasn't preparing for danger. She was preparing for a conversation. When she returned to Colorado in August, she was 15 weeks pregnant with their son. She believed they were going to work through whatever tension had been building. There were texts about counseling, about reconnecting, about saving their marriage. On the night of August 12, 2018, Shanann came home from a business trip around 2 a.m. A friend dropped her off. Security footage shows her walking through the front door, tired, pregnant, expecting to sleep in her own bed. Inside that house were her husband and her 2 daughters. By morning, everything would change. And that's the part that stays with people. Not just what happened next, but how ordinary the hours before it were. A family home, quiet suburban street, a marriage strained but not, in her mind, beyond repair. That's the before, and it matters. On that very night, something shifted inside that house that would unravel in less than 3 days. In the early hours of August 13, 2018, authorities say a violent crime occurred inside the Frederick, Colorado residence of Chris Watts. Shanann Watts had arrived home from a business trip at approximately 1:48 a.m., according to neighborhood surveillance footage. Their daughters were asleep inside. By morning, investigators would determine that Shanann and the children had been killed inside that home. There were no reports of forced entry, no signs of an outside intruder, and that matters. Here is what I mean. When a home shows no breach, law enforcement immediately narrows the circle to the people who were already inside. At approximately 5:27 a.m., security footage captured Chris Watts backing his work truck into the driveway and loading items into it before departing for a remote oil site operated by Anadarko Petroleum. Phone data later confirmed his presence at that location early that morning. By early afternoon, concern began building. Shanann had missed a scheduled medical appointment and wasn't responding to calls or messages. A friend contacted police for a welfare check. Officers arrived around 1:40 p.m. and were allowed inside the home. Personal belongings, including Shanann's phone and vehicle, were still there. Think about that. When someone disappears voluntarily, they usually take the essentials. That discrepancy raised immediate questions. On August 14th, Chris Watts gave local media interviews outside his home, asking for his family's safe return. At the same time, investigators were reviewing surveillance footage from neighbours and analysing digital records. The timeline they were building did not align with his public statements. On August 15th, after consenting to a polygraph examination and failing it, Chris Watts admitted to killing Shanann. He was taken into custody that day. Authorities later recovered Shanann and the children at the oil site where he had worked on the morning of August 13th. The location linked the vehicle footage, phone pings, and his movements in a way that closed the investigative loop. Here's my stance, and I'll say it plainly. This case became widely known not because it was complex, but because it showed how quickly evidence can dismantle a controlled narrative. Surveillance cameras, cell phone data, worksite logs. Modern investigations are built on digital trails, and in this case, those trails were clear. 3 lives were lost. The facts were documented, and within 48 hours, what began as a missing persons report became a confession supported by physical and digital evidence. No speculation, just what the investigation established. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.